the improvements that is going to come with the Dankun is proto-dunk sharding 4844. So it's going to include another type of the transaction that's going to be possible once the upgrades is done. And that type of transaction is going to allow for much larger input and much more cost efficient input comparing to what's been the case so far. And who's going to benefit from it the most are not going to be the end users of the application, but it's mostly going to be layer 2 networks that need to submit all of the data to the Ethereum in order to extract the security of the layer 1 network, in this case Ethereum mainnet. In the numbers wise, what's that going to allow is 10 times cheaper way of putting large amounts of data on the Ethereum layer 1 network, and consequentially that's going to enable much cheaper transactional layer 2 network, which is something that we've been all waiting for since, I would say, 2017, once the gas prices spiked significantly.
Hello and welcome to the Protocol Podcast. I'm Brad Keoun here with my co-host Margaux Nijkerk. Sam Kessler is on his way out, I think, to meet Danny Nelson at the Solana Hacker House, like as we speak, in Utah. But anyway, we do have a guest co-host today, Nebojsa Urosevic, who is the Senior Vice President for Engineering at Tenderly, which is essentially a full stack infrastructure platform. Are they kind of like Alchemy, Nebojsa, or not really?
Similar, with some additional dev tooling stuff and some other infrastructure components that Alchemy doesn't have.
Got it. Well, we're super happy. We're going to have a cool conversation about Ethereum. They had their Dankun upgrade on the Haleski testnet this morning. So we're going to key off of that, which Margaux covered. And we're going to dive right into some news stories first and talk about those. And then we'll come back, and interview Nebojsa at the end in our second Protocol Village segment. So, all right, with that, let's dive right in. First, please don't forget to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Protocol, on CoinDesk.com. Margaux, you probably roll your eyes every time I say that, but
no, we need subscribers. We need subscribers. We thank you to the subscribers already who follow us, but the more the merrier.
Yes, it is. The more the merrier. It's pretty good. I mean, we worked pretty hard on it. But anyway, all right. First story. Solana back up following major 5-hour outage. I wrote about this for the Protocol newsletter, speaking of which, today. It was pretty interesting. I don't know, Margaux, did you have any quick thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Solana is on a yearly basis to have an outage, right? It was like coming up on its year anniversary of running smoothly and then just didn't make it. I think it was like February 25th, right? So 3 weeks. But ever since like 2021, I believe there's been an outage. So I guess it's done for 2024, right? Like maybe the next one is 2025, but it was offline for 5 hours. And I think just given there's been a lot of news around Solana, right? It sort of had like a revamp after its sort of downfall following the SBF, FTX fallout. It's been one of the more buzzing and growing communities with developers. So that came away like that. I don't know. There was some pretty big news about it, but what do you guys think?
Nebojsa, you have any thoughts on this one?
Solana tends to push things to the extreme when it comes to the number of transactions. I like that they are experimenting, but with that comes the price of outage from here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're really looking forward to this 1-year anniversary. And I mean, I even read about it in Coinbase Institutional's report was just on Friday. They were talking about how this thing was coming up. And so all eyes were on them. And it was just, it's like they were running the marathon and they tripped, right, as they were getting up there. So I think it's especially embarrassing for them.
Well, also, I want to highlight also Dan Kuhn wrote a really great piece about Solana, and the title of it was "Can we stop pretending like it's still in beta?" Right? Because the name of the chain is actually like mainnet beta at this point. Like it's the fifth largest TVL. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of like buzzing developments happening on it. There was a store that opened up in New York City. I mean, like it's like one of the biggest change, and so sort of referring to it as beta seems kind of like obscure at this point. To Nebojsa's point, I think the Solana Ethereum competition is heating up again. And I saw a tweet or a post on X at this point that showed that, Ethereum's tackling fees, which I guess we'll get into later, right, when we talk about proto-dank sharding, and Solana is tackling like security and now outages like this. So this just goes to show like these narratives that these chains are built on, right? Solana was supposed to be the cheaper chain compared to Ethereum. They're both still dealing with these problems that won't be resolved immediately, and we're going to get more hiccups in the future. So
I mean, I also really like Dan Kuhn's piece, which, by the way, the Dan Kuhn upgrade is not named
the
after
Dan Kuhn.
But, I mean, this idea of beta, I mean, in some ways, this shows that it is actually in beta. I mean, and to your point, all these things are in beta. Another take on that would be, that Solana's the only one that's being honest that, yeah, this stuff's all in beta. I don't know. What do you think about that, Nebojsa?
So that's an interesting thing. I would say that right now Ethereum is more risk averse when it comes to shipping new things, which I think they want to, because mainly they want to keep the chain up the whole time, which I get it. Of course, that comes at the price of slower building, slower, less changes on the protocol level, which I think are important for the mass adoption of the blockchains. On the other hand, as Margaret mentioned, Solana is now tackling the security side of the things, and it feels like Android and iPhone 10 years ago, where now we're like there's almost no difference between the two softwares.
That's fascinating.
I love that comparison. And I agree. It's, I hear what you're saying, that this is all sort of in beta, but Solana has a big enough presence to sort of like, in my opinion, not call itself beta anymore. I mean, Polygon ZK EVM is still technically mainnet beta, right? Like that's the name of that. And ZK EVMs are more susceptible to be calling beta because it's such a new technology, right? I guess that's all up for debate anyway.
All right. Well, that is pretty, I mean, it's a serious story, but it is also somewhat entertaining. But all right, let's move on to our next one here. Eigenlayer. Insane. Sam Kessler who's not here today. He wrote this story on Monday night when they lifted the cap. Eigenlayer, the big restaking protocol, and people knew it was going to be a big deal, but all of a sudden it seems like it's a huge deal. They lifted their cap. All of a sudden, money. When he wrote this story, it soared from like 2 billion to 3 billion, and now there's like 4 billion at TVL.
We should back it up a little bit for the listeners that are not entirely sure or don't completely understand restaking, but basically it's this new way to earn rewards, to earn yield by taking your staked ETH or your liquid staking tokens and locking that into Eigenlayer, and in some way getting some kind of reward by securing other protocols and other dApps, or as they call them, AVSs, actively validated services. I don't remember what not autonomous validated, actively validated services that are built on Eigenlayer, and earning some kind of reward for that. This has sort of emerged as this new ecosystem in Ethereum, and maybe it's an entirely new separate ecosystem from Ethereum, even though it sort of uses the Ethereum as the base. But like you said, it's this cap was lifted. Originally there was a cap put on Eigenlayer so that there would be like they claimed it was like a way to decentralize the protocol and make sure that these staked tokens had like a bit more of equal share, if I'm correct. And now they lifted the cap like they've done previously because of what they claimed as like a surged or increased interest or increased demand, I think was the word they used. I don't remember it verbatim, but something like that. And so this is sort of, I think, awoken us to a whole new ecosystem of what does it mean to restake? What are the risks? Like, what are the rewards? Like, is this really something that is necessary in this industry, or is this just another way for to earn higher yields? And yeah, I mean, Vitalik
All of the
Buterin,
above.
the co-founder of Ethereum, has written about it and has stated sort of his, I guess, concerns with restaking. But yeah, this has brought. I like I've said, I don't think this is the last time we're going to be talking about Eigenlayer. But anyway, Nebojsa, what do you have to say? I think you have probably some more insights into this since you're, an Ethereum expert.
Something that's really interesting to me is that whenever certain protocol changes or upgrades occur, in this case, it was the merge and the following upgrade that allowed for the withdrawals. These changes are the things that basically allowed restaking. So for me, what is very interesting is that when these upgrades to the protocol level occur, there are so much potential in the all consequential pieces of the blockchain. And after the protocol, we have the infrastructure, and then after that, there are developers who are building on top of these protocols and leveraging the infrastructure. And then in the end, we all give it out to the users to test out and to see if there is a product market fit there or no. But yeah, the interesting thing is that these changes allow for so much to happen in the blockchain space.
I wonder if you can sort of explain, because the positives of this basically sound like it's like the rewards, right? It's the yield, it's the extra you're earning yields. But maybe, for our listeners who might not know, maybe you can explain sort of what it is that are the risks associated with this. I'm thinking more particularly like the security risk, if there are any, in your opinion.
So I'm not an expert on the financial things.
Sure.
I usually just look at the code. The code seems to be there, but again, I'm not sure if this is to me. It's either a road to something that occurred in 2008 in the housing market, or something much bigger and much better than that. I'm not financial
Yeah.
expert.
I'm curious, I mean, Nebojsa, what about, from, at Tenderly, are there some of these AVSs, are they coming to you, as clients for development work or anything? How does, maybe like, what are you seeing in your business?
So who are mostly our users and who are we catering are usually the developers who are building applications on Ethereum or some other layer 2 network. So we help them, we enable them to work in an isolated environments that boost their productivity, allow them to more efficiently debug and analyze their smart contracts. So those would be mostly the users that we cater, developers.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we had Riyad Wabi from Cubist last week, and he was talking about just how, it opens up. Well, I mean, the number one, the business of staking, and I guess now restaking is just becoming theoretically more institutional, even though, a lot of this, Margaux, I think you talk about the yield, a lot of this is like airdrop farming too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is still very, we talk about institutional. I think this is very degen for the moment. We're not seeing like a
It's
JP Morgan
possible,
or a
yeah.
BlackRock, like, but maybe, we're talking about Eigenlayer. Maybe EigenDA is something that, the data availability thing is something that will appeal to some more of the masses. But this is still very like crypto native at this point. I mean, Eigenlayer hasn't gone live with its mainnet, right? So there's a lot locked into this and a lot of hype for something that isn't fully live at this moment, right? So
on the other hand, like a lot of these AVSs are quote unquote theoretically legit projects, right? I mean, they're queuing up to do real. I mean, the whole point is it's not a bad concept. It's just like, you're a shopping mall and you need some security. You may, employ your own security, or you may hire a company to provide security, right? Like that's the concept here. But so it's not the concept is not terrible, but yeah, it seems like it's just not totally clear how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I love the analogy that Nebojsa made about the 2008 market, that this is either completely going to collapse or this is going to surprise us. And, I'm not one to predict anything or agree or disagree. But before we got on this call, I will say that Brad and I were saying that I wonder if this is going to, like overload the network, which is some of the
Mm,
fear that Vitalik has voiced. The validators are going to have, too much of a load put on them. So this is something that we're going to be talking way more about, I think,
Yeah.
and we're going to be following, I think, all the new projects that are coming out of what's being built on top of Eigenlayer. I don't think we're done talking about restaking in this moment. This is
I
to
think you're
come,
right,
as they say.
Margaux. I mean, as Eigenlayer's TVL ticks up as we're speaking.
Totally. Is that 5 now? I don't know.
But all right, let's see. We had one more topic we were going to try to hit here before we go to the break. And this was a story that Jamie Crawley and I have been covering, and just because it's been tons of fun, which is the Taproot Wizards debut sale of their, Ordinals Inscriptions project, Quantum Cats. This is a project they came out last year. They basically started this company to sell, these ordinals, and they raised $7.5 million for the project. And it worked. Last Monday, they came on and they had this minting, and they had built their own website apparently, and it was a complete disaster. Like the website didn't work, and everybody was, posting all these screenshots in the Discord about how they couldn't get their cats. And then they delayed it and they delayed it. They kept delaying it. They delayed it till Monday. And then they sold them out, and they raised like $13 million. I don't know. What y'all have any thoughts on this?
I don't have any particular smart thoughts on this. This automatically just made me think of the Taylor Swift tickets. How like the Ticketmaster wasn't working. Everyone wanted those tickets, and then boom, it sold out. So I don't know. Maybe this is not a very smart comparison, but maybe this project is in its Taylor Swift era. I don't know. But, I think this is sort of what we've probably mentioned in previous podcasts, that this is, I think, is highlighting sort of that there's development happening on Bitcoin. From my perspective, when you cover Ethereum, you don't really think that much about like all the developments that are happening on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just sort of this digital standard of gold, right? And untouched. But I'm always like keen to hear that, there's that there's now NFTs on Bitcoin and there's all this craze, right? We're not seeing that NFT craze as much on Ethereum, but I don't know. Any other thoughts?
Nebojsa, I mean, you're mainly Ethereum focused, right? But I mean, do you have any thoughts on this story?
I heard about ordinals last week, and unfortunately, I haven't had the time to check it out.
Yeah.
I love that there's some development going on Bitcoin network. I think that it's going to tremendously allow some of the additional use cases rather than the standard one for the Bitcoin network.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, that is, and that absolutely is the narrative these days is, Bitcoin L2 development. And if we're going to see, a lot of activity, I mean, there are tons of projects. I mean, I'm doing the Protocol Village column. I get tons of submissions. We had a couple in the newsletter today of these kind of like, projects on top of Bitcoin, DeFi or whatever,
I wanted to ask Brad, because you've been following this stuff more closely, but I'm wondering, you've talked to a bunch of the developers or figures in this scene. Are they taking note of what's happening on Ethereum? Like, is this sort of like, oh, look, like there's been this roadmap they've created, or there's all these layer 2s, they're scaling the blockchain, they have NFTs. Like, what, like, where are they getting? I don't want to say inspiration because it's not, it's more technical than artistic, but are they sort of paying attention to the development that's happening on Ethereum and wondering what they can do to improve Bitcoin? Like, where does that intersection sort of fall?
I mean, I think everything they're doing is basically just copying Ethereum.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, that's kind of what it is. They're just stealing that playbook that Ethereum has developed. Ethereum went off and did its thing, and now they want it, or people are figuring out, okay, we want to build on Bitcoin, and it's just, the same stuff that's on Ethereum in a lot of cases. I mean, I don't know if I can do this, but to quote another podcast, quoting another person, I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, Peter McCormack's Bitcoin podcast, What Bitcoin Did. And he was saying, he had I didn't hear the original, but he had Pete Rizzo, who's the former editor-in-chief of CoinDesk.
Yeah.
And that he was saying, that, his point was just that everything that, happened off of Bitcoin would eventually come back to Bitcoin. So I don't know. There's obviously, lots of narratives about that sort of inevitability, but that's kind of the Bitcoiner view, if that answers your question, Margaux.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering if Bitcoin devs would admit that they're just copying and pasting what's going on Ethereum. I don't know if they're so quickly to say that, but that would be interesting to get that on the record. So maybe we should get a Bitcoin dev on here.
All right. You can try to nail that down, Margaux.
You have the contacts, not me, but I'll ask the question. I'm happy to.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're gonna be hitting Nebojsa. We're gonna be hitting you with a hard question. Calling all developers. Score a Consensus 2024 Developer Pass for just $109, but act fast. Only a limited number of these passes are available. You may have heard that Consensus ain't for devs, but here's why you're wrong. Consensus is the only place you can fully immerse yourself in a multi-chain environment and learn directly from 20-plus chains, including Arbitrum, Chainlink, Solana, and more. Enjoy 3 days of intensive learning with technical talks, 40-plus expert speakers, and 20-plus in-depth workshops, including dedicated half-days for Ethereum and Bitcoin, and 3 full days of programming on our Protocol Village stage. Consensus 2024 is happening May 29th through 31st in Austin, Texas. Don't miss your chance to network at curated developer meetups, find new career opportunities, and explore hundreds of side events and hacker houses around town. Grab your $109 developer pass today, but remember, this exclusive offer is limited. Visit consensus.coindesk.com now to secure your developer pass before they're gone. Explore the epicenter of blockchain innovation at Consensus 2024. All right, we are back with Nebojsa Urosevic from Tenderly. And why don't you, Nebojsa, why don't you just tell us a little bit about Tenderly?
Yeah, sure. So Tenderly is a project that started some 5 years ago. We were just a couple of friends that were going to blockchain hackathons, and we came to a realization that it takes us much longer to develop things on the blockchain. So we came with the idea to build some of the development productivity tooling for us at that point to help us win more hackathons. After some times, we realized that these tools can be used not just by us, but that it makes sense for everyone in the blockchain ecosystem to have it available in order to be more productive. And after a few years of development and trying to find some of the best use cases, trying to land the product market fit, we become something that we call is a full stack infrastructure provider that helps developers be more productive, more efficient when they are building smart contracts, ensuring that they are secure, optimized, and once they are in production, that they can seamlessly scale with the number of users and when the adoption of these applications come.
And just to help orient people maybe a little bit. I was wondering if you could just, tell us what is like the most common thing that you do for a client, and just, what do they need you for, and then what do you do for them, and how long does it take? And I don't know if you can tell us kind of like how much they pay for that, but like how does that, just sort of what's your most common thing that you're doing?
Sure. So we usually cater to some of the bigger teams in the space, but not just bigger, some of the developer enthusiasts. But when we take the case of a theme in the Ethereum ecosystem that is developing either on Ethereum mainnet or some other layer 2 network, they usually want to ship a decentralized application to the network. And what they usually do is they spin off isolated environments where they test out their smart contracts, where they integrate it with their front ends, where they debug once they find some of the errors in the smart contracts. Then further down the road, they usually rely on our tooling to optimize smart contracts to save on gas, because that ends up saving dollars of their users. Then once they are done with the development, they usually start leveraging some of the infrastructure stuff that we have. So a couple of things that they usually end up leveraging are the simulations. So everybody knows that once you send a transaction on the network, there's usually no way of canceling it. So in that sense, users can have a sneak preview of what's going to happen before that transaction hits the blockchain, giving them more context of what's to come if they execute it. And of course, for the access to the blockchain technology, they usually leverage our Node as a service offering, sort of to help them leverage the tooling that we have in total.
Okay, that is really great, Nebojsa. Thank you. All right, well, so we're going to talk. I think we discussed we're going to talk about the Denkun upgrade and kind of what that means. And Margaux, there was some news on that today. Do you want to just give a quick summary of what happened this morning?
Yeah, sure. So, the Denkun upgrade, we've talked about a bunch on here. When had its final test today on the Haleski, I should say, testnet. So we're gearing up towards mainnet, which is really exciting. I think, they're going to decide tomorrow morning when to ink in a date, but by the time this airs, that'll have been decided. So, check back on your Twitter and your devs to find out when it happens, because, we won't know in this very moment. But
It'll be on next week's podcast.
Yeah, well, there might be other news by next week's podcast, so I can't guarantee that. But yeah. So this has been a long time coming. But I wonder, Nebojsa, maybe you can explain to us a little bit about, or to the listeners, like what this means for Ethereum users, L2 users, once proto danksharding, which is part of that Denkun, or maybe first explain like a brief explainer what proto danksharding is and what that means for users on Ethereum and on L2 once that goes live.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So one of the improvements that is going to come with the Denkun is proto danksharding, or APE 4844.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to include another type of the transaction that's going to be possible once the upgrades is done. And that type of transaction is going to allow for much larger input and much more cost efficient input comparing to what's been the case so far.
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to benefit from it the most are not going to be the end users of the application, but it's mostly going to be layer 2 networks that need to submit all of the data to the Ethereum in order to extract the security of the layer 1 network, in this case Ethereum mainnet. and what's that in the numbers wise, what's that going to allow is 10 times cheaper way of putting large amounts of data on the Ethereum layer 1 network. And consequentially, that's going to enable much cheaper transaction on layer 2 network, which is something that we've been all waiting for since, I would say, 2017, once the gas prices spiked
Sword.
significantly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really, I think that was a great way of sort of framing like step by step what that's going to happen. That like it's sort of an indirect, consequence of this is that these transactions on layer 2s are going to be cheaper as a result of that like inner mechanism. I wonder, there's been a lot of emphasis by Vitalik, by the devs to, push for layer 2s for all this building on top of Ethereum. And now it's going to be cheaper, to transact on layer 2s. Do you wonder if there's going, I think I've seen also a narrative change a little bit about trying to grab some of those users back to layer 1s or back to the layer 1 to Ethereum, because there has been this push to go to the rollups. I wonder, after 4844, is there going to be a more intense competition in terms of like transacting on or activity on a layer 2, like a, Polygon ZK EVM, like an Arbitrum, like an Optimism, versus like, I guess I'm just wondering, like, will there be some kind of loss in activity on Ethereum as a result of this cheaper mechanism for the layer 2s?
Well, one thing there is that we are like going away from the monolithic blockchain into the modular blockchain. And we've been all trying to solve this scalability problem that I think is one of the main reasons why blockchain is not hitting the mass adoption. I think that this is just one of the bottlenecks that we have at this point solved, that's been bugging us for, I would say, 6-7 years now. And once we solve that, there are certainly going to be some other issues. I would definitely say that there's most likely going to be a battle of which layer 2 is the most popular. I also think that there's some of the traffic that's going right now on the Ethereum L1 is going to move to the roll-up as a service networks that have been spun up.
Sure.
But yeah, I definitely think that one of the issues is going to be solving liquidity, how all of these blockchains are going to communicate. So some way of solving the cross-chain communication. But yeah, I think overall, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to see most likely 4 to 5 predominant L2 solutions, and then others will most likely be layer 3 or layer 4, etc.
And I just want to follow up real quick because you brought up the L2 battle, which I've been following very closely, and I love that story. But put you on the spot, like, who do you think is going to win that?
I'm not sure. I can say which technology is most likely going to win in the
Sure.
future, and that's most likely going to be the zero knowledge
Sure.
rollups.
Okay.
So that's the easy question that I can answer. I don't know.
Okay, well, Polygon, Matter Lab, Scroll, if you're listening.
I mean,
We'll
yeah.
be watching.
Well, okay. That's really interesting, both of you. Well, all right. So Nebojsa, I'm curious. I was reading a post from Near. Okay. And Near is sort of pivoting to, find its own strategy. And this post was about Near DA. Okay. And so and it had a table comparing Ethereum currently, Ethereum post proto dank sharding, which is kind of a long word, and then versus Celestia DA and versus Near DA, and the point of the thing, I mean, was obviously that near DA was, they were saying it was going to be the cheapest and the fastest. But I mean, the point being that Ethereum's finally coming out with this proto dank sharding. And the question is it already obsolete? I mean, I'm wondering what you think about that.
So the proto dank sharding is just the first step to a full dank sharding.
Yeah.
This is the
Sorry. Go ahead.
uh, this is just Ethereum being extremely risk averse in taking very slow steps because they're aware that if a bug in the specification or a bug in some of the major clients would happen, that would have catastrophic consequences. So I would say that like them taking things slow and just comparing the proto downsharding costs, I would say that that's just the first version. In the future, we are yet to see the full dunk sharding, which is hopefully going to decrease the costs by 100x. And I'm sure that the folks working at the Ethereum Foundation or um, some other researchers are going to come up with an even better ideas in the future. So yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that's a good point. Well, I guess as we see this drop in the costs of data storage, right? That's what we're talking about. How much extra development does that spawn? Is that going to lead to an explosion in L2s, or that even more so than we've already seen?
So I would say that initially, after every protocol upgrade, there's going to be a time, usually 3 to 12 months, where there's going to come out some new infrastructure components, some new tooling is going to come out that is going to sparkle some of the ideas that devs in the Ethereum ecosystem have, similar to Eigenlayer, I would say. And we're yet to see how devs are going to utilize all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that I'm not sure, but I'm really eager about this upgrade, especially as it finally solves one of the biggest pain points that's been going around in the Ethereum ecosystem, and not just Ethereum, but the whole blockchain space.
I wonder, I was thinking about what you were saying just earlier now about how Ethereum developers are extremely risk averse and they're very slow in the implementation of making this cheaper, and in terms of making this more scalable, in terms of, sort of doing like solving these problems that are supposedly going to bring on more people. But I'm wondering, are they going too slow? Like it's great that they understand that there's this gigantic network been built on top of it and that there's no downtime. They cannot have downtime is like their mantra, right? But blockchain goes through these waves, and every time, I feel like we're on a wave back up after this bear market, if we want to say that we're coming out of a bear market. But with that comes more blockchain adoption, more users, more higher transaction fees, probably, right? So we're finally hitting proto dank sharding, but dank sharding and then full sharding is like, I don't want to say decades away, but it feels like light years away in blockchain years, right? So like on the one hand, it is risk averse, but on the other hand, with anticipating that blockchain is only going to get more and more usable by people, is it too slow?
So I would say for the layer one, most likely no. And what what we can expect is that layer twos are going to develop much faster in the future. So
Mm-hmm.
what I suspect is that we're going to have Arbitrum Optimism, zk Sync, Polygon zk EVM that are going to leverage some of the new technology that they think should be used by the developers.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm thinking and there is that in the future we're most likely going to see much more layer two solution that are experimenting, that are trying something new, which I think is a great way of kind of balancing the risk averse that the Ethereum layer 1 is taking.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we should probably wrap it up there. Thank you for the fascinating conversation, Nebojsa, and Margaux. Thanks for the really interesting questions. And
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks to Michelle, our producer, keeping us on track.
Exactly.
As always. Big shout out to Nebojsa Urosevic from Tenderly, joining us from Serbia. And that is a wrap for this week's The Protocol podcast. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about any stories or comments, please reach out to us at podcasts@coindesk.com. Subject line The Protocol. You can listen to us weekly on CoinDesk Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Protocol, on CoinDesk.com. Thank you, and see you next week.